3 years ago, I sat in a crowded restaurant, staring at a menu I could not actually afford. Not because the prices were impossible, because my life at that moment was already stretched to the edge. I was making a little over $62,000 a year, after taxes, rent, insurance, gas, student loans, minimum credit card payments, and all the random expenses that quietly drain people without making noise. I had maybe $400 left at the end of a normal month. That was my margin. My breathing room, my thin little wall between stability and stress. Then the waiter came over, and without thinking, I pointed at one of the most expensive entrees on the page. Not because I wanted it, not because I was hungry for it, because everyone else at the table had ordered something expensive, and somewhere inside my brain, a silent calculation happened. If I ordered the cheaper thing, what would that say about me? That dinner cost almost $80 after drinks and tip. Nearly 20% of my monthly discretionary money disappeared in less than 2 hours, so I could protect an image that existed only in other people's minds. Driving home that night, I felt two emotions at the same time: temporary pleasure and long-term anxiety. The pleasure came from feeling successful for one evening. The anxiety came from knowing my bank account would expose the truth the next morning. And here is the part most people miss. That $80 dinner was not the problem. The problem was the identity system hiding behind it. I was not buying food. I was buying belonging. I was not buying convenience. I was buying relief. Relief from insecurity. Relief from comparison. Relief from the fear of looking behind. At the time, I thought this was normal adulthood. I thought everybody was quietly performing financial stability while privately panicking about money. Then I met Mark. Mark was 39, married, 2 kids, decent job, nice house, newer SUV, good clothes, family vacations. The kind of life that looked responsible from the outside. He made more money than most of his friends, but every month felt tight. His mortgage was normal, his car payment was normal, his streaming subscriptions were normal, his kids' activities were normal, his takeout spending was normal, his credit card balance was normal. Nothing looked reckless individually. That was the trap. Most people do not go broke in one dramatic moment. They go broke quietly, one socially acceptable decision at a time. What I did not understand then, and what Mark did not understand either, was that genuinely wealthy people operate by an entirely different set of refusals. Not dramatic sacrifices, not extreme frugality, not living in a dark apartment, eating canned beans. Small refusals, quiet refusals, invisible refusals repeated every month for years until the outcome becomes almost unrecognizable. Researchers who study millionaire households have found this pattern again and again. The difference between ordinary consumers and long-term wealth builders is often not income. It is what they refuse to normalize. This is that list. 10 things wealthy people refuse to do that everyone else accepts without thinking. Some will sound obvious. A few will feel uncomfortable. But by the end, you may realize the goal was never to look rich. The goal was to stop living one emergency away from fear. Refusal 1. They refuse to buy status with money they need for stability. The first thing wealthy people refuse to do is spend money to impress people they do not actually care about. This is the foundation underneath almost every other behavior on this list. The average consumer evaluates many purchases emotionally and socially. Wealth builders evaluate purchases functionally. They ask, does this solve a problem? Does it last? Is it worth the cost? Most consumers ask a different question without noticing it. What will people think of me if I own this? That invisible question quietly destroys millions of financial lives. Tom Corley's Rich Habits research found that financially successful people tend to disconnect spending from social validation. They do not buy things primarily to be admired. They buy things because those things serve a purpose. The Ramsey Solutions National Study of Millionaires reported that 94% of millionaires live below their means, which means the majority did not become wealthy by constantly displaying wealth. They became wealthy by refusing to perform it. Many ordinary millionaires drive practical cars, live in reasonable homes, and avoid turning every raise into a public lifestyle upgrade. Experian's Q4 2025 automotive data showed average new vehicle payments around $767, proof that the modern car market has become one of the biggest status traps in America. Mark learned this the hard way. His SUV was not transportation anymore. It was social armor. It made him feel like the kind of man who had arrived. But every month, that payment arrived too. Insurance was higher, gas was higher, hires were higher, registration was higher. And because the vehicle looked successful, it silently pressured every other part of his life to match. The nicer car made the older furniture feel embarrassing. The nicer neighborhood made cheaper vacations feel inadequate. The nicer image made every honest financial conversation harder. Wealthy people understand something painfully simple. Most strangers are not thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. The person at the stoplight does not care about your car. The person at the restaurant does not remember your order. The coworker who notices your watch forgets it 5 seconds later. But your bank account remembers everything. Pause here because this is the first major shift. Every dollar spent on image has two costs. The first is the price you paid today. The second is the future freedom you never get to build. Refusal 2. They refuse to pay interest on things that lose value. Wealthy people are not automatically anti-debt. Many use mortgages. Some use business loans. Some use strategic leverage. The difference is the direction of the asset. They are willing to consider debt when the underlying asset has a reasonable chance of appreciating or producing income. What they refuse to do is attach interest to things that collapse in value. Cars, electronics, furniture, clothing, vacations, buy now, pay later purchases. These things may bring comfort or utility, but they are usually depreciating assets. They become worth less over time. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, household debt reached nearly $18.8 trillion by late 2025. Credit card balances crossed $1.28 trillion. Auto loans reached roughly $1.66 trillion. Mark's car payment was $742. At first, he told himself it was manageable. Wealthy people understand that the danger is often not the loan itself. The danger is what happens after the loan removes your margin. The average person sees affordability. Wealth builders see opportunity cost. The average person asks, "Can I make the payment?" Wealth builders ask, "What future options disappear if I normalize this?" Refusal 3. They refuse to let raises disappear into lifestyle inflation. This is the refusal that hurts because it goes against almost every cultural signal in America. When you earn more, you are expected to upgrade. Better apartment, better restaurants, better clothes, better vacations, better phone, better furniture, better image. The economy expects it. Your friends expect it. Your brain expects it because hedonic adaptation makes new comforts feel normal faster than you think. But wealthy people often do something very boring and very powerful. When income rises, lifestyle does not rise at the same speed. Savings rise first. Investment contributions rise first. Debt payoff accelerates first. The visible lifestyle may barely move. Fidelity's retirement analysis found combined 401k savings rates near 14.2% in 2025. But the people driving those numbers are often the ones who automatically increase investing after raises. Mark received a $10,000 raise at 39. Refusal 4. They refuse to shop from an emotional state. The modern consumer economy is not built around your peace. It is built around emotional activation. Your rational brain thinks it is choosing. Your emotional brain has already been targeted. Wealthy people do not avoid emotion because they are robots. They build systems because they know they are human. Many use waiting periods, 24 hours, 72 hours, 1 week. The purpose is not punishment. Mark's weakness was late-night shopping. After work, after the kids were asleep, after the house was quiet, he scrolled. A desk gadget, a home gym accessory, a kitchen device, a jacket, a course, a subscription. Each purchase felt like a tiny solution to stress, but the stress always came back and the balance kept rising. The hardest part for me personally was realizing how many of my own financial decisions had nothing to do with utility. They were emotional. I was not buying convenience. I was buying relief. Relief from insecurity. Relief from comparison. Relief from feeling behind. I still remember one night opening my banking app at almost midnight. I sat there scrolling through transaction after transaction. My life was not collapsing because of one giant mistake. It was collapsing because hundreds of emotionally driven micro-decisions had slowly normalized financial fragility. There was a moment where I clicked cancel subscription on something I barely used and actually felt embarrassed. Not because of the money, because I realized how much of my spending had become emotional self-medication. I genuinely believed earning more money would solve the stress, but every raise disappeared into invisible upgrades almost immediately. Better restaurants, faster delivery, better clothes, slightly nicer apartments, more convenience, more comfort, more performance. The moment things started changing was not when I suddenly earned dramatically more money. It was when I finally slowed down enough to see where the money was actually going. That awareness changed everything. I stopped trying to look financially successful and started trying to become financially resilient. Those are completely different goals. One is performance, the other is freedom. Here is the practical rule. Before buying anything non-essential, ask 3 questions. Would I still buy this if it were not on sale? Would I still want it if nobody ever saw it? Would I rather own this thing or own the future value of this money? A $200 impulse purchase is not just $200. At 8% over 30 years, it is roughly $2,000 of future value. Refusal 5. They refuse to let money move in the dark. Many people think they have an income problem when they actually have a visibility problem. They know rent, they know the car payment, they know the big bills, but they do not know the leakage, delivery fees, subscriptions, convenience spending, random Amazon orders, auto renewals. Small charges hide because they do not feel dangerous individually. But small charges are exactly how financial pressure quietly builds. Wealthy people refuse to let money move unobserved. They track, not obsessively, consistently. A notebook works, a spreadsheet works, a budgeting app works. The tool matters less than the behavior. Mark did not believe he had much waste. Then he reviewed 90 days of spending. The number was embarrassing. Over $600 a month in food delivery, unused subscriptions, convenience stops, and small online purchases. None of it felt luxurious. All of it felt normal. That is the danger. Normal spending can still destroy your future if it silently consumes your margin. Pause here because this is where many people realize their paycheck was never the entire problem. The real problem was that every dollar already had somewhere to disappear before they gave it a purpose. The mid-video collapse arc. Then came the moment that changed Mark completely. One Tuesday night, his daughter needed emergency dental work. Insurance covered part of it, but not enough. The bill was $1,240, not catastrophic, not life-ending, just expensive enough to expose reality. Mark opened his banking app in the parking lot, checking account low. Savings nearly empty, credit card already carrying a balance. Retirement account barely growing despite years of work. He sat there in silence, staring at the numbers, while his wife looked out the passenger window, pretending not to panic. That was the moment, not bankruptcy, not foreclosure, not some dramatic movie scene, just a normal middle-class emergency exposing how little margin actually existed underneath the lifestyle. And here is the terrifying part. Mark looked successful to almost everyone around him. Nice house, nice car, family vacations, good income. But financially, one emergency away from fear. That is modern financial fragility. It often wears expensive clothes. Refusal. 6. They refuse to carry credit card balances as a lifestyle tool. Credit cards are useful payment tools when paid in full. They are dangerous lifestyle tools when balances revolve. This is one of the most absolute refusals among wealth builders because high-interest debt is mathematically brutal. Credit card APRs above 20% can destroy wealth faster than normal investing can build it. Mark used to say he was just floating things for a month. But 1 month became 3, 3 became 6. Then the balance became part of his identity. Minimum payments made it feel controlled. Interest made sure it was not. Wealthy people understand something many consumers avoid looking at. Compounding does not care whether it is helping you or hurting you. It simply works. If you own appreciating assets, compounding works for you. If you carry high-interest debt, compounding works for the lender. Every month, quietly, without emotion, This is why wealthy people refuse to fund both sides of the war. They do not pay 22% interest to a credit card company while hoping for 8% in an investment account. They stop the bleeding first. Refusal 7. They refuse to confuse new with necessary. Wealthy people often treat technology as a tool, not an identity marker. If the phone works, it works. If the laptop performs the job, it stays. If the car is safe and reliable, it does not need replacement just because a newer version exists. Modern consumer culture survives by making people feel outdated. Last year's phone, last year's clothes, last year's kitchen. The message is constant. If you are not upgrading, you are falling behind. Wealth builders reject that message. Mark upgraded his phone every cycle. It was always only $40 or $50 a month. But the payment never ended because the upgrade cycle never ended. The bigger cost was not the phone. It was the mental training. New became normal. Existing became inadequate. That mindset spread into every category of his life. The car started feeling old after 3 years. The living room started feeling embarrassing after seeing someone else's renovated house on social media. Even vacations stopped feeling relaxing because every trip slowly became content, comparison, and performance. Wealthy people understand that constant upgrading quietly trains dissatisfaction into your nervous system. You stop asking whether something still works and start asking whether it still impresses. That is a dangerous psychological shift because once your identity depends on constant upgrading, peace becomes impossible. There will always be a newer version, a faster version, a bigger version, a more luxurious version. Wealth builders break that loop intentionally. They use things longer. They repair instead of replace. They normalize functionality instead of novelty. And over decades, that mindset compounds into massive financial flexibility. Someone who keeps a reliable car for 10 years instead of replacing it every 3 years is not just saving on payments. They are avoiding repeated cycles of depreciation, taxes, fees, insurance increases, and psychological escalation. The average consumer sees old possessions as evidence of stagnation. Wealth builders often see paid-off possessions as evidence of freedom. That is a radically different emotional relationship with ownership. Pause here because this matters more than it sounds. If your happiness constantly depends on upgrading your external life, your financial system will never stop consuming your future income. Wealthy people do not necessarily hate nice things. They simply refuse to build identities that require endless replacement cycles to feel adequate. Refusal. 8. They refuse to spend their best hours passively consuming. Wealthy people relax. They watch shows, they enjoy life, but they do not allow all their available time to disappear into passive consumption. This matters because time is the raw material of financial literacy. The average person does not need a finance degree to change their life. They need repeated exposure to better ideas. Compound interest, debt payoff, insurance optimization, career leverage, investing basics, emergency planning, behavioral finance, tax strategy, negotiation. Most people dramatically underestimate how quickly small amounts of financial education can change their trajectory. The TIAA Institute GFLEC Personal Finance Index continues to show large financial literacy gaps in America, especially around borrowing costs, inflation, and long-term investing. That means even moderate financial education can create a massive advantage because the baseline knowledge level remains shockingly low. Mark used to spend 2 hours most nights scrolling and streaming. He called it decompressing. Sometimes it was, but sometimes it was avoidance disguised as relaxation. Endless consumption became emotional anesthesia after stressful days. Then something changed. After the emergency dental bill incident, he started spending just 3 hours a week learning how money actually worked. Not obsessively, not all day, just consistently. He learned how interest compounds. He learned why his retirement contribution was too low. He learned how much the SUV was truly costing over time. He learned why his emergency fund mattered more than appearing successful. He learned how insurance deductibles worked. He learned how lifestyle inflation quietly traps middle-income households for decades. Information changed behavior. Behavior changed math. Math changed emotion. Within 6 months, he was not wealthy. But for the first time in years, he stopped feeling confused about why his finances always felt tight. Awareness replaced helplessness. And that psychological shift matters enormously. People panic less when they understand the system they are operating inside. The average American spends over 4 hours a day consuming media. Imagine redirecting even 20% of that time toward learning about money, career leverage, investing, negotiation, or long-term planning. 3 years of consistent exposure to those ideas could completely alter someone's retirement trajectory. Wealthy people protect their attention because they understand attention eventually becomes behavior. Behavior eventually becomes outcome. Most people think wealth is mainly about income. In reality, it is often about repeated allocation. Allocation of money, allocation of energy, allocation of focus, allocation of time. Every hour has an opportunity cost, whether you calculate it or not. Refusal 9. They refuse to stay in environments that normalize financial dysfunction. Your social environment is not just emotional, it is financial. If your circle normalizes expensive dinners, finance cars, luxury trips, constant upgrades, and joking about being broke, your brain slowly treats those behaviors as baseline. If nobody around you invests, investing feels strange. If everyone is stressed but performing success, stress becomes the cost of belonging. Wealthy people are careful about this. They stop letting other people's spending patterns write their financial plan. Mark's friend group loved weekend spending. Restaurants, events, trips, sports packages for the kids, birthday parties that looked like wedding receptions. Nobody meant harm, nobody was evil, but every month belonging had a price. And Mark kept paying it because saying no felt socially dangerous. This is one of the least discussed forms of financial pressure in modern adulthood. People do not just spend money for utility, they spend money to maintain emotional membership inside a group. Sometimes the spending itself becomes part of the friendship structure. The problem is that your bank account does not care whether the pressure was intentional. The math still compounds either way. Eventually, Mark practiced a new sentence. We're sitting this one out. The first time felt awkward. The 5th time felt powerful. The 10th time revealed something surprising. Some people quietly admitted they were stressed too. One friend confessed he had almost no emergency savings despite making over 6 figures. Another admitted he was financing vacations on credit cards while posting smiling photos online. That is modern financial performance culture. Many people are privately exhausted while publicly pretending everything is fine. Wealthy people eventually learn that protecting their financial future sometimes requires disappointing other people temporarily. And that can feel emotionally uncomfortable at first because humans are deeply social creatures. But long-term financial stability often requires becoming comfortable, looking less impressive in the short term. Your environment shapes your standards whether you notice it or not. If everyone around you normalizes consumption, restraint feels weird. If everyone around you normalizes investing, restraint starts feeling intelligent. This is why financially disciplined people often intentionally seek out communities, books, podcasts, mentors, or friendships that normalize long-term thinking instead of endless upgrading. Because eventually, your standards become your habits, and your habits become your future. Refusal 10. They refuse to make big decisions without calculating the full cost. The average consumer asks, "Can I afford the payment?" Wealthy people ask, "What is the full cost over time?" Those are completely different questions. A car is not just a payment, it is interest, insurance, maintenance, fuel, depreciation, taxes, registration, and lost investment opportunity. A house is not just a mortgage, it is repairs, furniture, utilities, commute costs, property taxes, insurance, maintenance reserves, and opportunity cost. A vacation financed on a credit card is not just a memory. It can become months or years of interest payments attached to an experience that already ended. Wealthy people slow down at the point of decision because they understand something most consumers never fully calculate. The sticker price is almost never the real price. Mark's breakthrough came when he stopped asking whether he could survive a payment and started asking whether the payment made his future stronger or weaker. That one question changed everything. Suddenly, the SUV was no longer a symbol of success. It was a trade-off. The oversized vacation was no longer deserved. It was future flexibility exchanged for temporary emotional relief. The expensive furniture financing offer stopped looking convenient and started looking expensive. This is what financial literacy really does. It changes perception. It changes how your brain interprets trade-offs. For financial literacy, monthly payments look manageable. After financial literacy, monthly payments often look like future income already assigned away. The average consumer sees purchases in isolation. They understand that one expensive decision rarely stays isolated. Bigger car leads to higher insurance. Higher insurance leads to tighter cash flow. Tighter cash flow leads to credit card usage. Credit card usage leads to interest. Interest reduces investing capacity. Reduced investing delays freedom. One decision quietly cascades into 10 others. That is why wealthy people hesitate more before major purchases. Not because they are fearful, because they understand ripple effects. The 30-day financial reset plan. If you want to apply this immediately, start here. Day 1, track every dollar for 1 week without judgment, not to shame yourself, to expose reality. Day 5, cancel at least one recurring expense you barely value. Day 7, create automatic transfers to savings or investing immediately after payday, so lifestyle cannot absorb the money first. Day 10, stop all emotional online shopping for 72 hours before buying anything non-essential. Day 14, calculate the total lifetime cost of your largest monthly payment, including opportunity cost. Day 18, spend 1 hour learning personal finance instead of scrolling. Day 21, have one brutally honest money conversation with your partner or yourself. Day 25, build a 1-month emergency buffer, even if it starts embarrassingly small. Day 30, review your spending and ask one difficult question. Did this month move me closer to freedom or deeper into performance? Most people do not need a completely new life. They need interruption. Interruption of automatic behavior. Interruption of emotional spending. Interruption of invisible leaks. Interruption of financial autopilot. A $767 car payment invested over time can cross 7 figures. A few $100s monthly of invisible subscriptions, impulse purchases, and emotional spending can quietly become the difference between retiring stressed and retiring secure. This is not about never enjoying dinner, never owning a car, or never buying comfort. It is about seeing the trade clearly. Wealthy people see money in 2 dimensions at once, what it buys today and what it could become tomorrow. My consumers only see today. That is why every refusal feels painful at first. But eventually the psychology flips. Once you truly understand future value, refusal stops feeling like deprivation and starts feeling like self-respect. You stop seeing discipline as restriction. You start seeing it as protection. Protection of your future flexibility. Protection of your peace. Protection of your options. The final reset. Most people never go broke from one obvious mistake. They go broke through a system of normal decisions. Normal payments, normal upgrades, normal comparison, normal emotional spending, normal social pressure, normal avoidance. Then one day an emergency arrives and there is no margin left. That is what these 10 refusals protect. They protect margin. They protect clarity. They protect flexibility. They protect the version of you who will exist 10, 20, and 30 years from now. The goal is not to look rich. The goal is to become hard to financially break. To have enough margin that one repair does not become panic. Enough savings that one layoff does not become humiliation. Enough investments that time finally starts helping you instead of punishing you. Wealth is often built quietly, not through one brilliant move, through repeated refusals. Refusing to buy status, refusing toxic debt, refusing lifestyle inflation, refusing emotional spending, refusing invisible leaks, refusing passive ignorance, refusing financial peer pressure, refusing to normalize fragility, refusing to make major decisions without understanding the full cost. Most people spend their lives trying to look financially successful. Wealth builders spend their lives trying to become financially resilient. One creates applause, the other creates peace. One survives until the next emergency, The other survives the emergency itself. One depends on performance. The other depends on margin. One spends years trying to impress strangers. The other spends years quietly building options. One keeps upgrading the image. The other keeps strengthening the foundation. And in the end, foundation matters more than image every single time. Because financial freedom is not really about luxury. It is about breathing room. It is about waking up without panic. It is about not feeling trapped by every bill, every payment, every emergency, every opinion, every expectation. The wealthy understand something the average consumer often learns too late. Money is not just purchasing power. It is emotional stability. It is time flexibility. It is reduced fear. It is the ability to say no, see the system clearly, refuse strategically, compound the difference. That is how ordinary people quietly build extraordinary financial lives. Thanks for watching.